Ezra had been stationed on the research vessel Prometheus for 6 months, and in that time he'd seen exactly 3 types of beings: humans, the insectoid Vrel who handled engineering, and the occasional holographic projection of the captain. So when he stepped into the communal shower bay after a 14-hour shift in the hydroponics lab, covered in nutrient gel and exhausted, the last thing he expected was company, especially company that was 3 feet tall, covered in iridescent scales and currently attempting to drink directly from the showerhead. Ezra froze, one hand on the sonic cleanser control, water still dripping from his hair. The creature, no, the person, turned to look at him with eyes that were far too large for her diminutive face, pupils slitted like a cat's but glowing with an inner amber light. 2 small horns curved back from her forehead, and what he'd initially mistaken for a backpack unfurled into translucent wings that caught the harsh fluorescent light and scattered it into rainbow patterns across the wet tiles. "Oh," she said in perfectly accented standard, her voice high and melodic. "You're the human." Ezra realized he was staring. He also realized he was standing in a shower in nothing but his undergarments, which suddenly felt entirely insufficient. Yes, human. That's me. Ezra." The dragon girl tilted her head, wings folding back against her shoulders with a soft rustling sound like paper. "Grace, xenolinguistics consultant. I came aboard at the last supply stop." She gestured with a 3-fingered hand at the shower spray. "Your water systems are fascinating. On my world we bathe in heated sand." "Sand," Ezra repeated, still processing. His exhausted brain was moving at glacial speed. Grace was a dragon, a tiny dragon, with wings, who spoke standard, and was standing in the shower bay discussing bathing habits while he stood there like an idiot, unable to stop staring. "Silica-based, superheated by geothermal vents," Grace continued, apparently unbothered by his stupefaction. "But this liquid system is far more efficient for organic matter removal. Though I must admit, I'm having trouble with the temperature controls. Everything either scalds or freezes." Finally, Ezra's higher brain functions kicked back online. He moved to the control panel beside her, very carefully not looking directly at her as he adjusted the settings. "Here, the middle setting is calibrated for human comfort. Though I don't know if—" "Perfect," Grace interrupted, stepping under the spray. She closed her eyes and tilted her face upward, and Ezra found himself staring again despite his best intentions. The water cascaded over her scales, making them shimmer and shift through a spectrum of colors, deep purple to emerald green to a blue so bright it hurt to look at. "You're staring again," Grace said without opening her eyes, though there was amusement in her voice rather than offense. Ezra jerked his gaze away, feeling heat rise to his face that had nothing to do with the steam. "Sorry, we weren't briefed about new crew members. Especially not," he gestured vaguely. "Dracovians?" Grace opened one eye, the amber glow fixed on him. "Your captain requested discretion. Apparently humans have certain mythological associations with dragonkind. He was concerned about workplace disruption." "Mythological," Ezra echoed. That was putting it mildly. Every human culture had dragon stories, creatures of immense power, wisdom, and terror. And here was Grace, barely reaching his waist, cheerfully showering and discussing thermal dynamics. Grace's wings fluttered, scattering droplets. "I can see the wheels turning in your head, Ezra human. Yes, we know about your myths. No, we cannot breathe fire. That would be biologically absurd. Yes, the scales are real. No, you may not touch them without permission." Despite himself, Ezra laughed. The absurdity of the situation finally penetrated his shock. "I wasn't going to ask. They always ask," Grace said, but she was smiling now, revealing small, sharp teeth. "Within a week, someone always asks. Usually after the second drink at the rec lounge." Ezra moved to his own shower station, finally remembering why he'd come here in the first place. The sonic cleanser hummed to life, vibrating the nutrient gel from his skin. So xenolinguistics. That's a long way from home for language consulting. Not consulting, research. Grace's voice carried over the water and sonic waves. "Your species is unique. In the galactic community, humans are the only ones who developed such radically different language families in isolation. Most species have 1, maybe 2 linguistic roots. You have dozens. It's fascinating." "Fascinating," Ezra repeated, glancing over. Grace was now attempting to wash her wings, which proved awkward given their size and flexibility. Without thinking, he moved closer. Do you need? Grace's eyes locked onto his, suddenly sharp. Careful, human. My kind can be protective of our wings. Ezra held up his hands. Just offering. You looked like you were struggling. For a long moment, Grace stared at him, those alien eyes seeming to look through him rather than at him. Then slowly she relaxed. The dorsal joints. I can't quite reach. If you wouldn't mind. Ezra approached carefully as one might approach a wild bird. Grace extended her wings fully, and up close he could see they weren't just translucent. They were covered in intricate patterns like stained glass windows or insect wings magnified 1,000 times. Each movement sent ripples of color across the membrane. He couldn't stop staring. Beautiful, he murmured, not realizing he'd spoken aloud until Grace's soft laugh reached him. That's what your myths got wrong, she said quietly. They made us monsters to be slain or gods to be worshipped. But we're just people. Strange people, perhaps. Small people with scales and wings. But people nonetheless. Ezra carefully helped her rinse the dorsal joint she couldn't reach, marveling at how the scales felt under his fingers. Not rough, but smooth and warm, like sun-heated stones. I think, he said slowly, that's what makes this so surreal. You're exactly what we imagined dragons to be. Magical, impossible, other. But you're also just Grace, who can't work the shower controls and needs help washing her wings. Grace turned to face him, tilting her head back to meet his eyes. Despite her small stature, there was something ancient in her gaze, something that suggested depths he couldn't fathom. Your species has a saying, I believe. Never meet your heroes. Perhaps it applies to mythological creatures as well. Perhaps, Ezra agreed. Though I have to say, reality is a lot more interesting than the myth. Grace's laugh was like bells, clear and bright in the echoing shower bay. You haven't stopped staring once, you know. Ezra felt his face heat again. I know, I'm sorry. It's just, don't be. Grace interrupted, wings folding back into their resting position. In my culture, staring is how we show interest. Respect, acknowledgement of beauty. She smiled up at him. Besides, I've been staring too. And with that, she padded toward the exit, leaving wet footprints and a faint scent of ozone in her wake. At the doorway, she paused and looked back. Same time tomorrow, Ezra Human? He found himself nodding before his brain caught up with his mouth. Yes, same time. As the door slid shut behind her, Ezra realized he was smiling. The galaxy, it seemed, was far stranger and far more wonderful than any myth had ever suggested, and tomorrow he'd get to learn more. He still couldn't stop staring at the rainbow patterns her wings had left in the condensation on the walls. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. The end.